It's about that time for some Sports Zone. I am your host, Zach Wolchuk, and as always, we have a loaded show for you today. The World Series has begun, the NBA season is upon us, and another NFL player has been in the sports headlines for domestic abuse. But let's start things off with an interview from North Texas football coach Seth Littrell.
We found something that was working and kept going back to it and ended up being a good job. And again, that's a lot of credit to Brad Davis, our offensive line coach, and what those young men in the locker room are doing. They're working hard to get better every single week.
The Mean Green went to West Point and pulled off a huge upset victory over Army, 35-18. Joining me now to give their thoughts is Travis Buckner and Jordan James. Gentlemen, what did you take away from this big win for the Mean Green?
Wow, what a turnaround. From last year going 1-11 to now 4-3 and tied for first place in the Conference USA West.
Yeah.
There's not much more you can say about that.
It was a really good win. You know, people have been saying heading into that game, North Texas needs a signature win. And I felt like that was a signature win. All week I heard, oh, Army, they got the triple option and stuff like that. It's going to be hard to defend. You know, all the critics said they won't win this game. ESPN predicted them not to win this game, but they went out and won this game. I just want to say something. It's not about what any of us think, any of the fans think. It's about what the players think in that locker room.
8% chance to win before the game.
8%, huge underdogs for North Texas. Let's talk about that defense and how they stopped the triple option. 7 takeaways for the Mean Green defense. Talk about your thoughts on that performance.
Well, you know, I'm not a big fan of the triple option in today's day and age of college football. It's all about the spread offense, just about everywhere you look. But this really, since we were going up against a triple option, I loved it because UNT has always suffered against an air raid offense. But since they were running the ball, they thrived in this triple read option. They had 7 takeaways, 4 interceptions, and 3 fumbles. That says it all right there. I mean, your defense won this game for sure.
And like he was saying, the defense actually has improved all across the board. Last year teams were averaging 41.2 points against here. This year teams are only averaging 27.1. Give credit to the defensive coaching staff.
Jeffrey Wilson, 160 yards, 153 in the second half, 3 touchdowns. What do you think about Jeffrey Wilson, and could this young man possibly play on Sundays?
I'll let you take this one.
Yes, I believe he has the potential to play on Sunday. North Texas hasn't had a player drafted in a long time, probably since Mean Joe Green.
But some undrafted players, Zach Orr starting for the Ravens, Lance Dunbar obviously, Craig Robertson's had a long career.
Yeah, I mean he's played really good this second half. Like he said, he was a difference maker in that game early on. Seth Littrell, heading into that game, Army was ranked number 2 in rushing defense, so that's why Seth Littrell was trying to go with the pass, but the pass didn't work. The difference was him actually switching to the run and going with a player like Jeffrey Wilson. Had 3 touchdowns. He's actually second in Conference USA in touchdowns.
I think Mr. James here hit it right on the head. I mean, Jeffrey Wilson, 160 yards, 15 carries. That's over 10 yards a carry, so that's a first down almost every time he touches the ball. I mean, this is nothing new for Jeffrey Wilson. He's got 12 touchdowns, and he's averaging 7 yards a carry on the season. So that's the whole season altogether. So, I mean, it's just like Seth Littrell said, they found what worked, and they stuck with it. 3 touchdowns, 160 yards for Jeffrey Wilson.
And also, let's talk about the red zone a little bit. North Texas is 20 for 22 in the red zone, which is 90.9%, which ranks second in Conference USA.
I think decision-making is key, especially when you get into the red zone. Talk about what your thoughts on Mason Fine and kind of how he's steadied the ship since taking over as the quarterback for North Texas.
I like Mason Fine a lot. I just believe he gives the team a lot of energy. I believe he brings the guys together right. Early on, he struggled. They actually had a season-low 50 offensive snaps. But he's actually a good game manager, and he has the ability to extend plays with his feet. That's why they went with a player like him opposed to Alec Morris, but I like him right there.
Yeah, I mean, you can't say enough about this kid. He's an 18-year-old kid. He's a true freshman, and he's already managing the game very well. He was only 9 for 17, but he only threw the ball 17 times. So that just shows that the offense doesn't rely on him. He can do whatever he needs to do. And like you said about Alec Morris, I mean, this guy can run as well. He's a very dual-threat quarterback. Alec Morris did not bring that to the table that we saw in the first game against SMU, which Mason Fine came in the fourth quarter and lit it up.
And speaking of offense, North Texas is 4-0 this season when they scored 22 points or more. So that seemed like a
Do we think this team can win Conference USA?
I mean, I think we've got the toughest. We're in the West. That's the toughest division. We've got La Tech, Southern Miss in front of us right now.
Yeah.
And we play them the next 2 weeks. So I feel like if we can go out and beat La Tech, we've got a chance winning the conference.
I like it. Like you said, UTSA, they're a new team that, got a new coaching staff and stuff like that. I believe they can win. Like I said, it's not about what we think. It's about what that team thinks, and I like their chances in Conference USA. They competed well against some of the top teams in Conference USA.
Quickly as we wrap up, 2 wins away from a bowl. We going bowling this December?
Yes, we're going
to a bowl
bowling.
game.
I'll be there.
Coming up next, we will shift our focus to some baseball as the World Series is now underway. Stay with us on Sports Zone.
I mean, we we had a tough start with this series. They're up 2-1, and then all of a sudden a bunt turns the whole thing around. It's World Series, absolutely. It's the grandest stage, but I don't want our guys to change a thing. Our prep's not going to be any different. There'll be optional batting practice like there was today. I don't want any more work. I don't want extra study. I want us just to do what we normally do. All these things come to your mind. I think my wife, Jay, my kids, my mom back in Pennsylvania, my dad who wasn't here. Those are the kind of things you think about in that particular moment. And it's overwhelming and it's awesome.
We just saw an interview with Cubs skipper Joe Madden. It's been a combined 174 years since the Cubs or Indians last won a World Series, but one of these teams is going to snap the streak in this year's Fall Classic. Riding shotgun with me now is Alejandro Espinoza and Peyton Russell. Boys, what do we make of this World Series matchup?
This is going to be a good series no matter what. I mean, both these teams have now won in almost a World Series in almost 100 years, and both teams, they had a great 5-year plan. They developed their players well, and it's honestly going to be a good series. I'm expecting it to go all 7 games, and it's overall, I mean, both teams just have the energy, and they know they all want to win, and they all want to take the World Series.
Well, I think something key you got to look at is this is a World Series of young athletes. You know, over half of the players, over the 50 athletes that are playing this World Series are younger than 26. 26 or younger. I think that's huge. And if you look at it this season as an overall, this season has been wrapped around as young athletes. You know, you had, for the last 3 or 4 years, we've talked about the Mike Trouts, the Bryce Harper, Steven Strasburgers, but now you have the face of the franchise in this World Series, and even the face of the league, I think, you know, in Francisco Lindor. You have Chris Bryant. Javier Baez has shown he's a star. You know, Kyle Schwarber has come back. He can be a star. You know, I really think that's something you got to look at.
Yeah, and also, I mean, another thing that has been the key to the seasons, and for both teams as well, is the pitchers. I mean,
absolutely.
We all saw yesterday's game.
Shutout win for the Indians.
Corey Kluber had one of the best games of his career. 10 strikeouts in the World Series. It's a record. And John Lester and John Lackey, both great pitchers for the Cubs. Lester, he didn't play bad. He just didn't play as good as what Kluber did. And Lester, he's a great pitcher, and I believe that he'll still be doing good when he plays next in the series again.
Peyton, you touched on Francisco Lindor at 22 years old. He had a stolen base in the first inning last night for the Indians to really kind of get them ignited. Do you think he's maybe the MVP favorite in the World Series if the Indians go on to win? And how good is Francisco Lindor?
He's incredible. You know, like you said, 22 years of age. You know, he's batting well over 330. You know, had a couple hits last night. He showed that he can play under the pressure, under the bright lights. You know, he really took off from this season. You know, he has guys on that team like Kipnis that have really, you know, made him into a better player. I think he's kind of watched him, kind of been a role model for him. You know, and he can be a favorite to win an MVP. And even I think in the next 5 years, he will win an MVP for the AL.
I agree too. I mean, Lindor has played amazing. I mean, he was everywhere. He was a stealer basically for the Indians yesterday. I remember in the game he had stolen one base against Lester, and then there was also that one moment where he almost stole another base, and then Lester just gave him the look. But I also agree Lindor could be an MVP, but I think Kyle Schwarber, and this is pretty much, this is going to be a good story too, because I mean, Schwarber comes back from an ACL injury back in April. He comes in, he does good, not great yesterday, but
he got a hit in his first game.
He got a
back.
hit,
I think that's
exactly.
double
That's
off the wall,
perfect. That was
almost hit it out.
exceptional. That's perfect right there. And so, I'm expecting him to do better in games 2 and 3 in the series.
And Cleveland and Chicago, we've talked about it. Huge gap between each team winning a World Series. Which city do you think this is more important for?
Well, what a scene it was in Cleveland last night. You know, right across the street, literally right next door, you had the Cavs receiving their rings, getting a championship banner. Is it Cleveland's year? You know, you had the Cavs winning the NBA championship. Exactly. You know, you got to believe in the land. And, you know, you have the Indians already up 1-0 in the series. They're 5-0 at home this postseason. They have 3 more games at home, possibly. They have home field advantage. And I really think it's Cleveland's year.
Alejandro?
I say Chicago, and do you remember the last time Chicago won the World Series?
1908.
That's right. Theodore Roosevelt was still the president that time. And
Oklahoma became a state that year.
That's you. God, we are old.
I know.
But still, I mean, Chicago, they have a bigger reason to win. They haven't won in 108 years. They won the World Series, and I'm believing that President of Baseball Operations, Theo Epstein, he will get this team a World Series. He broke the Boston Red Sox curse. he'll break the Chicago Cubs GOAT curse.
I would agree.
One thing you gotta look at though is with that Red Sox curse, Terry Francona was the manager for 2 of the World Series in 04, 07. They swept both those series. He's already have a World Series, a win in Game 1, so he's 9-0 in the World Series.
Insane.
I mean, and this pitching staff for this Indians team has really been the key. I mean, they have a 1.58 ERA in this playoffs. You know, that's huge. 4 shutouts. It's been crazy.
But do you think Trevor Bauer is going to play well against Arrieta tonight?
It doesn't matter. As long as you get the ball to Andrew Miller, he can throw 2 or 3 innings. And like you saw last night, he came with the bases loaded, nobody out, did his job.
Who do we think, predictions? I know it's 1-0 for Cleveland already, but who do you think wins this series and in how many games?
Chicago, and it's going to go all the way to Game 7, and I'm thinking Chicago is going to win 4-3. They're going to win Game 2 for sure because
Arrieta on the mound tonight.
Matt Arrieta is playing tonight, and then Game 4 is apparently John Lackey is going to be playing that game. So this is where Chicago will get their win, will get another win.
A couple of things you got to look at, though. 9 out of the last 10 100-win teams into the playoffs have not won the World Series. The 2009 Yankees are the only team. I have
So who you
Cleveland
picking?
in 6.
Cleveland in 6? All right, we're going to step aside for a quick break, but coming up, we're jumping into some NBA talk. Stay with us on SportsZone. The NBA season is now underway, and our analysts are very excited for a new season. With me now is Bria Graves and the Bowtie King himself, Kennedy Miller. Bria, what are you most looking forward to seeing in this NBA season?
I'm really looking forward to the East. Everybody always talks about the West and how the West is so strong, but I'm really feeling like the East, they might make a little bit of noise this year.
Okay.
So I'm really excited to see the East.
Who in particular, what team are we looking at? Because I kind of think the East stinks again.
I mean, I wouldn't say completely stinks, but they are getting better. It's not just like, of course it's the Cavs, but I feel like the Celtics are going to have a great year.
Okay.
I'm really excited to see the Bulls now that they have, D-Wade. And the Knicks, I mean, might not be a super team, but I feel like they could make a little bit of noise.
Kennedy?
To her point, I do think that the East has improved. I would not say that it is as good as the West, but I do think there have been moves throughout the offseason that have made the East at least interesting to watch, maybe more so than they have been in the past couple of years. I look at a team like the Pistons, who didn't get talked about this offseason, but they got swept by the Cavs last year, but it was a very competitive series. Stan Van Gundy's an above-average coach. Andre Drummond is a great center in this NBA, and they have a lot of good pieces on that team that could challenge anybody else besides the Cavaliers in the East in the playoff time. But for a team to me that I'm looking out for this year, and I've said it before on this show, the Utah Jazz.
Yeah.
They lost last night, but Gordon Hayward is out something like the first 20 games of the season. But I look at the team like the Jazz, they're a top 5 defense. And they just need a couple of pieces to roll their way, not getting any injuries, and they'll be pretty good.
Who are your favorites this year? I think Cleveland, it seems like in the East, both of you are simpatico on
Yeah.
that. So let's shift to the West. Who are we going?
The West, even though they had a really bad loss last night, I think the Warriors still, between them and the Spurs, but
They're
I really
gelling.
do. Yeah,
They're
yeah,
figuring it out.
exactly. I mean, it's only the first game, so let's not just write them off. But I think that the Warriors, they're going to go to the finals. I really feel like
Okay.
they will.
Kennedy?
I believe the same thing. I think, they lost last night, but clearly there's chemistry that has to be made with the team. But eventually, when you have a team of 4 of the top 20 players in the NBA and 2 former MVPs on the team still in their prime, I think that team is pretty much destined to go to the
So
finals.
we're going chalk here. So I'm going to throw a wrench in here. Let's say Golden State, you can't pick them in the West. San Antonio looked really good last night. Kawhi is a freak. LaMarcus Aldridge without Tim Duncan, maybe he steps up a little bit. And the Clippers with Doc Rivers, could this maybe be the year that they step in there in the West?
I do like the Clippers. I think if they do, this would be their last chance to before they should blow up that team. Chris Paul is going to be a free agent this summer. Blake Griffin's going to be a free agent. The Clippers have always had the talent to challenge in the West, and I picked them a couple of years ago to go to the finals, and they let me down when they choked
They
to
tend
the
to do
Rockets.
that.
Yeah,
So I usually don't pick the Clippers anymore. But I do think the Clippers have the talent. They always play the Warriors tough. They beat the Spurs 2 years ago in the first round. I would like to see it, but I'm not going to put any trust in
You
it.
don't have the faith in
No,
theirs.
yeah.
Bria, same thing?
No, I would like to see them, Love Chris Paul. I feel like he deserves a ring. He really does. But I just think they're not gonna. They're gonna compete, but they're not gonna. I don't think they're gonna go to the
Past the
finals at
second
all.
round.
I think so.
Yeah, they
If
can. They
the
can.
balls
They
fall the right
can.
way, yeah. I think the Clippers could get in the conference finals.
Let's talk about the Mavs. I think this is probably one of the more questionable years coming in for Dallas. Not really sure what we're going to get from the Mavericks. Outlook for Dallas this season.
The Mavericks. I mean, I'll give them first round in the playoffs.
Just to make it in or get
yeah.
past the first round?
See, to make it in.
Okay.
First round, I don't think they're getting past that. I mean, this is just going to be average season for the Mavs. I don't think that they really have what it takes as far as the West competing with everybody else.
Yeah.
I mean, of course, they have Harrison Barnes now, but we haven't really seen him play to his full potential. So I can't really just say that he's just going to come out and just dominate and the Mavs are just going to go to the conference finals. I don't think so.
We know Rick Carlisle's a top 3 coach in the NBA.
He's the man.
We know what Dirk is going to come out and do. They brought in Harrison Barnes, which is much needed youth and athleticism on that Mavericks team. They also brought in Andrew Bogut. I don't know if the pieces will fit, especially with how much money you're paying Harrison Barnes at $94 million, considering he shot 5 for 32 the last 4 games of the NBA Finals. Andrew Bogut provides much needed rim protection, but I don't know how healthy.
What about Wesley Matthews?
he
I think
will be.
Wesley Matthews is the X factor for the
I do
Mavericks
think
this
Wesley
season.
Matthews, he played really good last year coming off the Achilles tear, which I didn't know how he would come back from considering how bad of an injury that is. But I look at the bench, and I don't know if their bench is deep enough to withstand the better teams in the West. I don't know if that bench could help them when they play a Portland, when they play a Clippers team, a Spurs team, a Warriors team. Their starting 5 has a lot of talent. West, Harrison Barnes, Andrew Bogut, Dirk, Darren Williams, but I don't know.
Playoff team, but probably get bounced in round 1. That's what we're
Probably.
thinking for the Mavericks.
Probably so.
Hopefully they can surprise some people. It's time for another short break, but when we return, our analysts will share their thoughts on the controversy surrounding former Giants kicker Josh Brown. Stay tuned.
My husband and I have been fighting, and I went to go turn off the computer in the other room, and he grabbed my wrist and started gritting his teeth, and I got really scared, and I just went and locked myself in my bedroom again. They came last night, and they said if anything else happened, just to call back, and I don't want anything to get any worse.
That was a pretty chilling piece of audio from former Giants kicker Josh Brown's wife, Molly. We also have a quote from Josh Brown. "I have been a liar for most of my life. I made selfish decisions to use and abuse women starting at the age of 7 to fill this void. I objectified women and never really worried about the pain and hurt it caused them. My ability to connect emotionally to other people was 0. My empathy levels were 0. Because I never handled these underlying issues, I became an abuser and hurt Molly physically, emotionally, and verbally. I viewed myself as God, basically, and she was my slave." To help make sense of this situation is Jocelyn Mitchell and Connor Bean. Jocelyn, let's start with you. What were your initial thoughts when hearing this audio and the news of Josh Brown?
When I first heard the news, I just figured, honestly, that it's just another NFL player committing domestic violence. But when I saw this, when I heard this clip, and then I also saw videos of his team standing behind him, it kind of hurts, I guess, being from a woman's side, and then also knowing kind of personally, not through my parents, but domestic violence, period. The fact that people are not seeing the real issue, or the fact that this man is physically, whatever you want to call it, abusing his wife, and they're just standing behind him like he has a sickness or a disease.
Connor.
Yeah, most definitely. I completely agree with you with that. I understand why his teammates are standing behind him. Like, that's your teammate. You got to support him. If you agree or disagree with his decision, it's like with Colin Kaepernick in the national anthem. His teammates support him even if they disagree with his decision. You know, he got released yesterday. In his statement when he got released yesterday, he said he was physically abusive, but he never struck his wife. I don't know what that means. I don't know if he cussed her out, or something else, you know. I'm kind of curious what happens there, but, you know.
That's verbal and physical.
Verbal,
It's
yeah.
still abuse.
It goes hand in hand, but
Yeah.
it's like, you know, I really don't understand, like, why he said that. You know, it's still domestic violence in everyone's opinion, I believe.
My question is, why wasn't it handled before? They waited to cut him after the journals and stuff got released, they knew he actually admitted to the people that he abused his wife. And they said, I can't quote it, but the co-owner, he even said that they knew that he was abusing her. They just didn't know to what extent. My thing is, it shouldn't matter what extent. The fact is, he's abusing his wife. That's bottom line. They have to wait till she's dead.
Mara came out, the co-owner of the New York Giants, and they supported Josh Brown. They kept him on the roster. He didn't fly with the team to London, but they did wait until yesterday to cut him. Jocelyn, obviously you don't agree with them waiting. He should have been cut immediately. They shouldn't have shown support. Is that what you're saying?
That's exactly what I'm saying.
And Connor, how did you feel about that?
I'll tell you how this goes. This is why the NFL dropped the ball on this, because he's a kicker. It's all about his position. Like, he's expendable. Kickers are maybe the most expendable position in the league. And not only that, he's 37. You think the Giants owner ain't got a kicker in his back pocket? You bring in 4 or 5 kickers for a trial, you got another kicker. You know, if this was like Eli Manning or Odell Beckham, the league would have handled this. They probably wouldn't be playing football right now. But
and it brings us to, we've had cases of this. Ray Rice, Greg Hardy, and the NFL came out, suspended them. Josh Brown, it seems like they're kind of tinkering with it a little bit. Do you agree that's why it's different, because of the position that Josh Brown plays as opposed to a running back or a defensive end?
It could be possibly, but in my opinion, I guess I'm thinking the opposite way, because my opinion, if it is that, why don't you just let him go since you have someone that easily? Because regardless of what position you are, even if you're just washing clothes, if you're wearing that logo, you're representing that league, and that's what younger people that look up to them are going to see.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. You know, it doesn't matter if you're the starting quarterback or the third string long snapper. Everyone should be treated differently in the NFL. Everyone should be treated the same, I'm sorry.
What should be done with Josh Brown now? Do you believe he should be banned for the NFL, shouldn't be given another shot? How do you think he should handle it moving forward?
Well, even with Ray Rice's situation, as horrible as that is, I mean, we're humans. We're not God or anything. We all make mistakes. I don't feel that he should be completely banned forever. I mean, it's a simple mistake. He owned up to it, so that's one sign of improvement. So maybe they should give him a chance later on, but right now, no.
I mean, you know, I don't think he should be banned either, but like I said, he's a 37-year-old kicker. You know, I know Adam Vinatieri is 40-something. He's up there in age. He's still out there kicking balls, but, you know, he probably won't get another shot because he's a 37-year-old kicker. Like, who wants a 37-year-old kicker on their roster?
True.
The NFL came out and said that they made a special group. They had 4 women, I believe, that they hired to handle these kind of domestic violence incidents. I haven't seen anything from these women come out. Jocelyn, do you think the NFL should put in stricter policies in place? Maybe they should let these women speak out and talk about how they feel. How can the NFL handle these issues differently?
I think they should pay more attention and be more mindful and careful with these situations. It may help with the women talking, but they should definitely be more strict and like really nail down on these type of topics.
You agree, Connor?
Most definitely. You know, with these women, you know, they're here for this type of instances. You know, if this was like marijuana, you know, they would be gone for 10 games. You know, this is more important. Beating your wife and your children, you know.
Thank you for sharing your thoughts on the topic. That's a wrap for today's show. Be sure to follow us on Twitter at UNT SportsZone. And don't forget to check out Mean Green Game Day right here on NTTV, 2 hours before every Mean Green kickoff. And we will see you next week for another episode of SportsZone. Take care.